Hi, my name's Leah, and welcome to my podcast. On this podcast, we're going to be talking about gender roles in heterosexual relationships. I'm not sure about my listeners, but I love hearing about people's thoughts and opinions. So, for this podcast, I decided to sit down and interview some heterosexual men and women to hear their thoughts on some gender expectations in relationships, and hear what their personal preferences are when it comes to their relationships. I just want to stress that most of this podcast is opinion based. I simply wanted to sit down with some men and women and see if their preferences match with gender expectations and hear their thoughts on social expectations. Moving right along, I wanted to ease my interviewees into the questions. So to start them off, I asked who should pay the bill at a restaurant. I noticed that the men all had very similar answers, which all pretty much sounded like this.
Personally, I will always use the base as the man should always do it.
I've always been raised that it's always the man who picks it up.
The man.
Personally, I would pick up the tab just because I have kind of more of a traditional thought on paying for dates and dinner.
All of the men I interviewed started off their responses by saying that they would feel it's their job to pick up the tab. However, some go on to specify that after a certain point, that both the man and the woman would end up paying the bill.
The man on the first and second date, and then as you guys are dating for longer, usually split it up.
I'm with a girl who makes it her business to also be the person paying for meals. So I feel like it could be an equal split, and whoever calls the dinner is the one to pay for dinner, or just something of that nature.
But in a relationship, I think it might vary just because you're sharing incomes. So if you guys agree upon, hey, I'll take the first date, you get the second date, and you're going half and half that way, that's fine as well. But
I found this so interesting because I noticed that the women's responses of who should be paying the bill were less about whose responsibility it was and more situation based.
I think whoever invited the other person out should be paying.
I feel like it's an equal kind of thing. Like, I don't expect my significant other to always pay the tab. I feel like it can go either way. I feel like if you ask me to go out on the date, yeah, you should pay for it. Like, I'm expecting you to pay for it. But if it's just like a mutual thing, like, I can pick up the tab. Like, I don't need no man.
I don't know, it just depends on who has the most money, or like, not like who has the most money exactly, but like who has more money in the moment. Like, for example, right now, like our situation, I have a little more than him right now, so I'd be the one who would pay for that. It's just fairness at this point. And then, like, if I pay for one meal, he'll pay for the next one.
You can really see the differences in responses based on gender. The men felt it was their job to pay the bill or the tab whenever possible, whereas the women never felt it was solely up to any party to always be paying the tab. Hearing both sides was just so interesting to me. I don't know about you guys, but I love seeing different sides of the story and hearing different viewpoints. For my next question, though, I wanted to get the group's idea of what they felt general or societal expectations were for each gender in relationships. It wasn't surprising to hear that pretty much everyone's response was the same and all sounded a little like this.
Stereotypically, women are supposed to be in the kitchen making food and being housewives, and men are supposed to be out working.
Usually it's the man's the provider, and the woman's usually the one at the house. But
The idea of like the male breadwinner and just more like the more domestic female housewife.
the man does more of the grunt work, the more physical labor, and then the woman would traditionally do the cleaning and cooking.
As you can see, I heard a lot of the man is the breadwinner or laborer of the house, and the woman is essentially the housekeeper doing the cleaning or the cooking. What I did find interesting, though, was how one of the interviewees responded to what she thought men expected of a woman in a relationship and why she thought that.
I feel like a man is expected to be a protector. A woman, I feel like it's more of, the word that popped in my head was catering. Like, catering to a man. Like, because he is the protector, I feel like men believe that women should cater to everything that they need. I feel like it's just expected out of us to make sure everything is okay. Make sure he's fed, make sure he got clothing.
I've just found what she said very fascinating because I've never really thought of it like that. But hearing about these expectations led me to ask about how they felt towards responsibilities should be divided in a relationship.
depends who makes more of the mess as well. Like,
Who makes more of the mess?
yeah, if you wreck a toilet, clean up.
If I do the home inside cleaning and then you do the outside cleaning, because I don't know none of that. So like for us to change like roles in that, it makes sense because I don't want to touch a lawnmower. Like I'll do it if I really have to, but like he's got it. So like I guess in that way, like a lot of gender stuff, like he fixes like a lot of the other I guess the handy stuff, and then sometimes I'll try to do it, but I feel like it's just, I guess he also likes to do it, so it just depends.
I think they should be divided by who is comfortable with doing what. I have a lot of trauma around cleaning, so I don't like doing things like vacuuming and folding laundry, but stereotypically I am Hispanic and I do like cleaning because it is a little bit of my culture. So I don't have a problem with doing everything else. I just don't like vacuuming. So as long as you're okay with doing some of the things that are really difficult for me mentally.
So you'd be cool if the man was doing a little less of the cleaning and you were doing more, as long as he did the parts that you didn't want to do.
As long as I feel comfortable and he feels comfortable, it's fine by me.
Personally, I think by skill set. I think if I know how to work on cars and she knows how to clean the inside of a house, then it's my job to take care of the outside, her job to take care of the inside. But I found that now I do a lot more inside than outside, and personally I think it should be split 50-50, but if there can be an agreement upon skill levels and task, like I can fuck up a kitchen, cleaning up a kitchen. I think that I should clean the kitchen while she does a lot better than me in the bathroom. She can clean the bathroom, I do the kitchen. She gets too tired of it, then, we swap every now and again. But I think it should just kind of dynamic, really, based off of skill set.
I feel like it honestly just should be divided evenly. Like, they should both agree upon like what chores are theirs, and they should be willing to like kind of make sure both halves are kept up. Because I feel like it's very unfair to assume one person is going to take care of everything, because that seems like a very heavy workload. So I feel like the healthy balance would just simply make sure both halves work together to try to get everything done. Like both, like in case like after dinner, both partners should be working to like clean up afterwards, so it doesn't feel like one is just taking the other for granted.
I think that depends. I think that depends on timing, when something might actually need to be done versus someone's strong suits. So I think it's a discussion between partners on what they're good at, because in my experience there might be someone who doesn't necessarily like washing dishes, and then you would just turn around and pick up the slack and do the dishes just because that's not something they particularly like. But then they might particularly like to take out the trash or mow the grass, and if they're fine doing that, that's perfectly fine as well. But long as all tasks that are needed to be done are getting done, I don't think there's a specific split in how that works.
I feel like in my relationship that I was in, he does a lot of the basic cleaning, so like he'll pick up all the rooms, like he'll pick up all the stuff, but I'm more of a deep cleaner, so like I scrub the walls, I clean the dishes, like I bleach down everything. Like I'm just a detailed cleaner, and he's just kind of like, or he was more of like a spot cleaner, like he just picks the stuff up, you know what I'm saying? I rather not pick up every piece of clothing off the floor. That's not me. I rather like get down and get all the chemicals and get to scrubbing things. Like it's fun to me. So I have no problem with that.
I noticed there was a similarity and yet still variety of opinions when it came to who does what chores. Some said it should be divided by preference, others said by strong suit or skill set, and one even said by who makes more of the mess. Essentially, when it comes down to cleaning, every relationship is different in how they go about it. But next I wanted to know how they felt taking care of the kids should be dealt with. It seemed like most of them thought that in theory it should be 50-50, but they understood that that would most likely not be the case.
I feel like it should be equally, but if one is the main provider, then the other one needs to take the slack. Like if one is always working or one has other obligations to do besides being in the home, I feel as if that other person should pick up the slack without having anything else to say, just because you're not doing that.
I feel like it's based on mostly availability. I feel like it's the idea that both parents are, raising the children together.
I think at first you would want it to be fair and even, but living in reality, that's not always the case. Therefore, I think it just goes back to whatever needs to be done. And if you have to watch the kids more than your partner may be watching the kids, that is just what it takes to kind of progress in that certain space and time. And then, I mean, over time, it might change and the roles might be reversed. So I don't think there's a particular, I guess, amount of time in which I feel as though a partner is supposed to be with them, because I mean, one partner might work more than the other, and it would be unfair of them to have to, I guess, carry the additional burden and weight of watching children after having such a heavy load of a day.
I maybe want to be a stay-at-home mom, so I probably want that, but me and Pablo really like do everything equal, to be honest. Like we don't ever, like, if one of us is falling, we pick each other up. It's just always like in the middle. Like we're always balancing each other. So I feel like with kids, I feel like it'll kind of be that way, I guess. I don't know, like we'll both be playing a role in helping kids equally, as in like, okay, he'll pick up the kids, or like I'll pick up the kids tomorrow, he'll pick up the, like it's just like that role or whatever, or he'll take them a bath, or I'll take them a bath the next day, I'll feed them, he takes them a bath. Like it's just a constant, it's like a job, like that's a full-time job, like being a parent. So having like one person do like one job, that's a lot for that person, because even with like me having dogs is a lot for me. So for him to help me out in the mornings and like all day, it is like help. So with kids, I can't even imagine, like even them being 18, like it's a long journey. So
Most of the responses focused on who should take care of the kids and when. A lot of the answers I heard was picking up slack, availability. Some of them want to be a stay-at-home mom, and some even talk about switching off who does what. However, some people shared how they thought disciplining the kids should go.
I would assume 50-50, because I think it's key that, those kids get to have both the parents. But on that same note, I feel like it just normally happens that there's a good cop, bad cop. So there will be someone who, like, especially like, for instance, my dogs. I know my dogs are not kids, but there's a disciplined person. There's the lover. My girlfriend, she's clearly the lover. Me, I love those dogs with my life. I'd kill for them. But they know that when they're messing up, I'm the one that put them in a straight line. With Lucia, she'll tell them to do something. It takes them 3 tries for them to get it the right time. Me, I speak once, it's heard, it's done. I don't play that. So I think that upon disciplinary matters, that it's usually a man's role or a mom's role. I mean, mom was our disciplinary person. So it just depends on who takes that role up, really. It could be both, it could be one, but I know most relationships is just one or the other.
As far as children go, I have very strong opinions when it comes to authority. Not that, like, I'm very authoritative, but I just like things my way. So if I have a rule and you don't agree with it, you have to do what I'm saying, because at the end of the day, we made the child, but I pushed it out. I'm always going to have more of an opinion than you, and my opinion will be the final say. Like, we can discuss and do things in a partnership, but most of the time, the end result is going to be what I want for my children.
That last response was very interesting. She felt that no matter what, in the end, she should and will get the final say. However, I'm not sure I can agree with that that's the best way to go about it. If one parent has the absolute last say-so, then you're not really in an equal relationship. However, that's just my opinion. Raise your kids however you see fit, So, after asking about this, I decided to find out how they felt bill and money handling should go. Let's listen to that.
I wouldn't say I necessarily have a preference. I just think ideally it's kind of based upon income. So if one partner makes more than the other partner, I guess it's kind of up to them collectively to decide how they would like to divide the bills. Because, I mean, some people might say 50-50, and then some other people might say 70-30 or 80-20. So I think it's up to the couple to kind of decide what their percentages on each side are going to be, and going from there, attack the bills like that. As far as a joint account, if people feel as though it's necessary, that's what might work for them, but having 2 separate accounts could work just as fine.
So I had, in the beginning, like, on our relationship, like, I had more money in my account. Like, I saved a lot more money. Papa was going through a lot of stuff. So, and right now, I have a bigger savings, but I still keep my savings to myself. He still keeps his savings to himself. We don't have joint accounts, and I don't know if we ever will. Because it's, like, there's a lot of things in the future. Like, I feel like people can change, and people might, you know, steal your money. I'm not saying that I don't trust Pablo and all, but, like, you never know. Like, and it's not like, I'm not saying it like it's a bad thing, because if like he goes to the hospital or something, I got the bill. Like, you know, like, it's, if he doesn't have the money, then I'll take care of it. Like, if I have enough money in my account, like, all that would go to him. But like, I guess in like situations like that, we got each other, but I don't think I'll ever do a joint account for bills. In general, we always have, it's always half with everything. We both pay utilities together, like rent, utilities, and like internet and stuff like that. And then I have my own car payment and like my car insurance. That's what I pay for, like my stuff, I guess you could say. And then he pays for his stuff.
I see.
Like, he might make a little more than me, but I still think it's fair, because we're still kind of in the same like salary, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair that we just go by that, and it works.
I would have a joint account and then my own account, and he would have the joint account and his own account. Depending on how much we each make, we would split like 50% to always go to joint account, and then like the rest is for us. So we can, for the joint account, it would be things like home things for the children, daily things for our lives. And then our own accounts would be for things like that we wanted to spend things on, like going out or getting birthday presents or things like that.
As of right this moment, we go off of a 50-50. And she has her account, I have my account, we have nothing in tandem. Personally, I like it that way, and she likes it that way, and it just makes sense, because you can't, I don't like having the responsibility or the liability of having to deal with somebody else's income. I think it's very good that there should always be two separate accounts, but there should be a joint account for, you know, if there is to be a family, then there should be a family account for necessary needs, school supplies, all that we need to put into a basket and collect for kids' school supplies and all. Bills, I think, should even be the same way, but even bills, we kind of split half and half, you know. I handle my bills, I take the money from her that I need, and she takes the money from me that she needs. She pays the bills that are her name, I pay the bills that are my name, and we both go home happy. And the lights stay on, everybody's fed, keeps it simple. So I think it's very key that everything gets split down the middle. There's all fairness. Now, granted, if my girlfriend was a stay-at-home mom, that'd be different, but for the most part, keep it 50-50 as long as you can.
I feel like, yeah, it should either just be based off of like the total income, and then it just kind of goes to which specific bills they want to handle
Down the middle. But also, it does come into like your income. Like, if you make more money, I feel like you should put more into the bills, and or figure out, okay, so this is the biggest amount of money that's being spent on rent or the cable, whatever, and you just take a big chunk of that just because of your income. If you have a joint account, I mean, I feel like it'd just be down the middle. But if you're making more income, I feel like you should pay more.
Joint account. Do you feel like you would ever get a joint account?
Nope.
Okay. This is so you don't feel, so you just have separate accounts, and then you guys would just figure out who pays what.
I mean, eventually, if it's right to get in there, it shouldn't just be one of you are the beneficiary. It should be both of you are in there, both of you know it's coming out. Like, it's only for bills, purposely. Like, no, we're not getting food off that card. We're not doing anything. Like, that's just to pay the bills.
So ideally, you would have one with someone, with the man that you love, I guess, or the person that you're married to or in a relationship with.
Yeah, but I also, like, I will never.
Interesting that you say that would be good, but you don't want one for yourself.
I feel like it'd be good just because it sounds smart to do. Instead of us worrying about, okay, this money's coming out of this account and this money's coming out of this account, we can only have one account and the money's coming out of it.
But you would never do it. Which is what I find interesting by your answer.
It's just hard to do it right now, I guess.
You don't have to do it right now. It's just the idea of, would you do it? And
I
it seems like
I think I would, but only for that purpose. I feel like people have joint accounts just because they're married, and all of a sudden, oh, now we have a joint account. Mm-hmm. Now I feel as if, for my reasons, it'd only be for bills only purpose. Like, I'm not, like, my money is my money. Mm-hmm. Like, if I decide to give you some of my money, that's me giving you some of my money. But I work hard for mine. So if it's not about mutually doing something, then yeah, no.
So only with someone you'd have that trust with.
Yeah. If it's real, I feel like every relationship should have a joint account only for bills only. And I feel like both of you should have the right to get in there. It shouldn't just be one of you are the beneficiary. It should be both of you are in there, both of you know it's coming out. Like, it's only for bills purposely. Like, no, we're not getting food off that card. We're not doing anything. Like, that's just to pay the bills.
So, we just heard a lot of different opinions, but I feel like generally they all had the same idea. Essentially, they would be paying 50-50, but whoever made more income would be paying more of the bill. What was funny that to me though was all the mixed feelings on joint accounts. It seemed like this group felt strongly about having their own accounts for their own purposes, and that if they did have a joint account, it would be only used for bills or for the kids and so on. Hearing all of their opinions on this made me want to ask them about prenup.
I wouldn't want a prenup because we are being bonded to each other for the rest of our lives. Even if anything like a divorce was to happen, we should still know each other enough to know what one another wants. And we should be respectful of each other enough, even just for the fact that we loved each other, know what each other person needs in the rest of their life.
I want a prenup. And if we mutually, like, if we get things together, then that would just have be a conversation when it's, you know what I'm saying?
Personally, right now, in this current stage of my life, I don't think a prenup would be necessary. It would be strictly circumstantial. I think if someone is with you prior to you coming into money, I feel as though they are partially entitled to that money because they were there during the building of whatever empire might take place. Now, if you already have money and you meet someone, then that might be a discussion, because that really comes down to amount of I guess trust and what you think someone is owed if the relationship were to not work.
Like, if he was like just treating me badly, and then it's just like, I feel like the prenup would kind of be like,
No,
you know, like, I'll be like, okay, get out of my house, like, I don't, like, you need to go, like, and this will be my house. So I mean, in a way, like, it makes sense, but like, really, I don't think I believe in it.
You don't think you would get
Like,
prenup?
no, I just feel horrible. Like, I can't do that to somebody, like, as a person. Like, even though you treated me like crap, I don't think I could ever do that.
Okay.
All for it. I think it is complex. It's very dynamic within every situation, but I believe that the prenup should be maybe tethered to the situation. I feel like everyone should walk away with half, but everybody should also walk away with what they brought to the table. I don't think anybody should have to leave with less than they brought with, because that's just unfair and very unbiased. I don't think that the other one should be to where, okay, if the man supported the wife, he shouldn't just drop her dead in her shoes. But I also don't see why a man would have to cover a woman's financial situation for the next 15 years of his fucking life. That doesn't make sense. So I think that there should be a grace period in which the main breadwinner, in a sense, if we're going to talk about financial assets, the main breadwinner should assist the spouse to an extent, but it shouldn't be milked to where the motherfucker has to give his life. If you leave a restaurant, you left, they don't owe you a steak every night of the fucking week, is how I kind of see it. But like I said, I think it needs to all be legitimately fair. It just needs to a perfect balance between logical and humane.
We just heard a lot of different opinions. One I found interesting was the idea that she didn't want a prenup because she felt that they would both have enough respect for each other. That's just such a fascinating way to look at it in my eyes. I am someone who would definitely be for a prenup, so hearing her talk about that was very interesting. The idea of if someone came into money, then if someone was with someone when they came into money, that was interesting to me as well. I guess that would make sense to me that if someone was with you before you came into money, there's no need for prenup because they helped you do that, or at least they should get more portion because they were through that. However, if someone was with you after they came into money, there's a strong need for a prenup. And the last thing I want to say about this is the comparison to the restaurant. Once again, I've never really thought of it at like that way, so it was just very interesting to hear his perspective on that. I was eager to hear about this next question because I don't really think many people think about it often, but essentially my question to them was how they felt about the idea that men only have one title, Mr., whereas women have one for if they're married, for if they're not married, and one if you don't know if they're married, Miss, Mrs., and Ms. So I just asked them what they thought about that.
I mean, for men, it's kind of straightforward, at least in my opinion. In women, it's a nice little separation, but I always kind of just default to Miss. I think it's just keep it the way it is.
The way it is.
Pretty simple. So I like to go off of the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. So if it works, then if identifying the male as Mr. in all case scenarios and identifying the woman in Miss, Mrs., and Miss, however it is, then I leave it in that, because if it's a formal way of seeing it that already works, then why mess with what already working?
I don't really have any thoughts. That's just what that always has been.
Okay.
I guess I agree with that. I think it's fine the way it is.
But in the state of society and equality, I think it would be fair to either make the variations on the men's side to equal the women's variations, or just have the women's variations down to one, just as the man is currently.
Like, personally, I don't really see an issue with it. I mean, I don't know, that's just what I'm used to. Like, I didn't just realize that until now. Like, I don't think it's a huge deal, to me at least.
I feel like the fact that men have one title and women have three kind of makes it feel like they should just make a one title for women, because I feel it's weird that women are only the honorific for women only is the one that denotes what marriage or not. I feel like just a more general terminology would be probably just better, because it feels like it makes women feel more valued, as opposed to just like telling them whether like you can tell immediately if they're married or not.
I feel like it's more of a maturity thing.
You don't think it has anything to do with gender or bias towards gender, that women have titles for if they're married and unmarried, and men only have the one title?
No. I feel like I would love to go from a Miss to a Mrs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you feel, I don't know, maybe I'm just corrupt. And I think it's okay. I think we should just leave it as it is. I don't think no woman is really, like, tripping off that, for real. If you're a woman, I don't think a woman is really, like, bothered by that. Maybe they are. But me, personally, and other women I encounter, I don't think that that's an issue.
After hearing the responses, I was surprised. I thought that women would want to change the way we handled honorifics so it's less biased towards gender, but I was wrong. Interestingly enough, all the women felt that the title should stay the same, whereas the men, well, a few of them at least, thought that it should be changed. Perhaps I was surprised about that because I, as a woman, felt that honorifics were sexist, and I still feel like that's the case. However, they did explain that they felt something as small as honorifics is not one of the bigger issues women should or would be focused on in terms of gender bias. But hearing their thoughts on this made me curious about how they would feel about surnames. So let's talk about that.
Like, at first, I'm like, oh yeah, I would definitely like keep my husband's last name, because why not? But then it's like, as I was going, my situation at home, my parents have 3 girls, no boys. So who's gonna take the last name and who's gonna carry it on, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, I love my last name. Like, I love being a Rodriguez. Like, that's just me. Like, I don't know. It's just my blood. Like, it's just my blood. It's just, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of like where I came from and like my roots and everything. And it's the Mexican in me. You know? I would want to hyphenate like both of our last names.
I think I don't really have a preference if my wife wants to retain her name throughout marriage.
Me, I'm keeping my last name because that's a part of my identity. My last name is a part of my identity. So I would be Savannah Adames, his last name. So it would be a hyphen. He should keep his, because my last name is my last name and you cannot have it. But I'm taking yours.
Like I said, it's a big deal for the woman to take my name. Like, when I was younger and when I was planning for this day to come, it was, I know a girl's going to take my name. So personally, I'd want it to be my last name. Now, if she wanted to keep her name hyphenated, then that would be her choice. If she doesn't want to take my last name, then she doesn't want to be with me. She doesn't want. It should be an honor for me to make her. In my mind, it should be an honor that I want you to carry my last name. Like, it's an honor. It's something that you do with great pride. It's not something you're handing out like free cookie cards. It's a very prideful moment for a man to open himself up like that to a woman. So I personally believe that, like I said, it should be she has my last name.
I'll take his.
I would like her to assume my last name.
There was a few interesting responses, but a majority of the women wanted to hyphenate and a majority of the men had a preference for the woman to keep only his last name. Something I also found interesting was that no one really felt that both the men and the woman's name should be hyphenated. Only the woman's last name should be, or she should just simply take his. I found that interesting that none of the men would even think about hyphenating with the woman's last name, and the woman had no issue with that at all. I guess it probably has something to do with the past and the fact that women only took men's last names, so even hyphenating apparently is too much. But who knows, maybe I'm the one that's crazy. Anyway, next I want to know about how they felt their kid's last name should be. And you think the kids should have his last name as well?
I mean, if we're married already, yes. I feel like me personally, in my situation, I had children at a wedlock, and I should have hyphenated their names, and I didn't, just because I'm not married. So, like, when I get mail from my house for my kids from school, it always says Mrs. Lewis. Like, that's not me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not my name. So, like, I feel some type of way.
Personally, I'm a very, very strong believer in they should have my last name, and that should be the family last name. And I see the uniqueness with having a hyphenated name, but personally, not only just for traditional reasons, but for even logical reasons, I think it's logical to have a solid last name, a solid foundation name for the family, as opposed to it splitting off. And I feel like it allows for a lot of complexities and maybe some disadvantages even over time. So I think in mindset, if they wanted to keep it a morale in the house that Amana Adames Rodriguez, then that would make sense. But on paper, anything official, I personally believe that they should be having the man's last name. They should be carrying my last name.
But my children would not be hyphenated. They would have his last name.
My personal preference would be they assume my last name. I wouldn't be against hyphenating, because it is only a last name and it's kind of like a family tree type of thing. So I feel as though as long as both are being represented, you can't really go wrong.
If we had kids, I would want it to have like a hyphenated, both last names.
I want them to have both. Like, why wouldn't you want both?
There was mixed opinions on this topic, which was to be expected. Some wanted to hyphenate so both names could be represented. Others felt like kids should just take on the man's last name, even if her name was hyphenated. And one thought that if they were married, they should take on the man's last name, and if they were not married, then they should just hyphenate the kid's last name. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but it was interesting to hear about what they all thought. Now I want to take a second to talk to you about an author. Her name is Chimamanda Adichie, and she's also a feminist. In one of her books, she proposed the idea that couples could come up with their whole new surname together and then go down to the municipal offices as a couple and change all their documents together. This idea was fascinating to me, so I wanted to know their thoughts and willingness to do it as well.
I think it's cool. Like, we can make up our own last name. Like, that's dope.
I wouldn't just create a random one though. I'd still like keep them separate.
Just hyphenate?
Yeah.
I don't like that idea. I like the idea of keeping last names there's so much history in last names.
Logically, it makes sense. I don't think it would be something that I would partake in, just because I think your family name kind of has a certain lineage and history and heritage behind it. And I think people kind of put a lot of weight on their last name. So to come up with a last name collectively, yes, I think it would level the playing field. But I also think at the same time, keeping your original last name, or at least hyphenating it, kind of has its own effect in itself.
The idea of creation really isn't really that necessary.
I'm shaking my head right now because personally I don't believe that. I don't believe that you should just be able to pick up and choose a name like a baby for that, because then you lose a lot of your traditions, you lose a lot of your, I guess, family pride. Like, a last name carries a lot of weight with it. Like, it's not just a formality, which, like I said, I could see that being hard on the woman's end of things, but I don't believe in that. I believe that it should be the man's last name that is chosen.
Now, if you guys didn't catch that, essentially only one person I interviewed was willing to come up with a new surname with their partner. Everyone else didn't feel right to do so. Personally, I would be willing to create a new surname with my partner, but I understand why others wouldn't, since last names do hold a lot of history. As we're reaching the end of this podcast, I wanted to ask my interviewees one last thing. I wanted to know what influences they felt impacted their views on roles and expectations in relationships. So, for the last time, let's hear what they have to say about that.
I had to work. My mom was worked at a fitness center. My dad worked at was the assistant manager at a nursing home. So I've always seen it as like the idea that both of them worked. So I didn't really have the thinking that like one is stays at home. But even if that was the case, I think it's just also the fact that I'm pretty progressive, where I just think it was kind of arbitrary that women have to be the housewife and men have to be the breadwinner. I feel like it doesn't really, at that point is kind of arbitrary. I think whatever both partners agree with is probably fine. I just see dual breadwinner as just the most progressive choice, because it allows both people to pursue their careers and be the best they can be, while still making sure they can have equal stake in their family.
I think mostly my past relationship that I had influenced a lot of it. And it was just the worst relationship I'd ever had in my life, and I thought that person was the love of my life. But now that I met Pablo, it's changed, and I've really became a different person because of that person that changed me. I think that's I think that's just the big thing, to be honest. It's honestly, the way I see it, it's simple. To me, it's just that person and a little part of my how I was raised.
I think my influences stem from mass media, my mother's and my upbringing, and some of modern society's thinking on what a relationship is currently.
My childhood, my parents' relationships that I've seen in my family and out in the world.
I want to say parents, I guess. My mom was in a relationship, and it taught me love for a little bit, but then it also got bad. So it just showed me things that I wouldn't arguing about money. That's just one big thing I don't like to do. I don't like to argue or bring up money in anything, just because it was a big issue in my mom's relationship, to where my dad, on my dad's side, he just had a lot of women and always had a lot of women, and my mom only had one person. So I feel I get my loving from my mom, but then my dad, it just showed me that you don't want to just be bouncing around. You know what I'm saying? It's not okay to just, if you're going to be in a relationship, be in that relationship. There's no reason for you to be in a relationship and have 7 other people with you. You know what I'm saying? And I feel that's why I'm as loyal as I can be when I'm in a relationship.
I'd say definitely, the culture, I guess in my time anyway, leaned more towards my traditional mindset of thinking. First generation Latino, the dad went to work, the mom watched kids. And that was one fundamental that definitely built up my mindset on the whole thing. The music I listened to, I was very big in R&B. I was very big on, we used to sit back and watch the videos of the men going out, finding beautiful women, treating them, giving them the world, and I tried to be that, to find a woman and treat her like gold based on that content. So that was another key factor into my mindset towards that. And just altogether, the people around me. Chivalry more came from my mom complaining about what my dad didn't do. And like I said, I was more leaning towards my mom's hip before I was with my dad's hip. Of course, my dad was always working. And just the decisions he made, the choices he made, they just weren't really factoring to what I was hearing as a kid. So I would always hear what my mom disliked from his actions. And it was literally my goal to take the positive of what he did, paid for dinners, got her gifts, did all that, that was something I was going to take with me, and whatever he messed up on, I was going to try and change.
Culture, past relationships, music, society. There seems to be a lot of things that influence this group's view on relationships, but one very common response was parents. It seems like parents have a big impact on how we view relationships, along with many other factors, of course. Now, if anyone's wondering, personally, I think my parents and the things I've read have the biggest impact on how I view relationships. Anyway, I hope my listeners take the opportunity to answer these questions themselves and found hearing about others' opinions as interesting as I did. Until next time, thanks for listening.